let's do it. 3, 2, 1. I already started it, and I could edit off this part, but I'm not going to because I don't want to. It's here, man. The tier list time. We're back with a land battle and conquest hybrid tier list because they roughly share the same strength of factions. And we just did one of these because CA are releasing big old patches that change our entire meta and outlook on the game with increasing frequency, which is exciting if you're a viewer and a content creator, which is less exciting when you have to make tier lists for this stuff. I'm joined by another content creator, Tequila Sunset. I'll need to remember to put his link in the description, but Tequila, who are you? Why should people care about you? What are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm Tequila Sunset. You can just find my channel, just like search like Tequila Sunset Total War on YouTube. You'll find it. I mostly just cover pretty much the same kind of stuff Human Boy does: multiplayer content, land battle, and conquest. And we have tournaments every weekend, pretty much. So tune in if that stuff interests you. And yeah, let's get to it.
Okay, all right. Now, as casters, we're both garbage at the game, but we also
True.
watch a lot of games, and we can see the factions that win often, so we can still have
True.
opinions on these, even if we're not actually any good at it.
To be fair, I did just win my tournament today, so you know, I tested myself and I passed with straight flying colors.
Well, then that means I'm the only one who sucks. That's not great.
True.
All right, I'll just let you do this. Screw this tier list. No, back in. All right, Vampire Coast. I think last time they were maybe C, bottom of B, and not a lot changed with them. So I don't know. I feel like they're still kind of in the middle.
I'd say they're right on that dotted line between them. I can take an argument either way. Like, rotting leviathans are definitely like better than they used to be. Like, I've actually seen that strategy of just taking 2 rotting leviathans, either with Salastra or without, and just trying to just out HP and out grind your opponent. But still, the gun lines can still be okay. Like, deck gunners are still a rough thing because they're just too squishy. Their artillery, if their artillery was better, I think they'd be in a really good spot. They're one of those factions where, like, if they just got some slight buffs to, like, their range and stuff like that, because their chaff is really good, they can end up taking a big spike, but right now they're in just a okay spot.
Yeah. They're alright. I don't have that much negative to say about them. I also don't have that much positive. They're countered by archers, so if you can bring a lot of archers, they're going to have a bad time, but I don't know. They generally do okay into most other things. I'll put them, like, the bottom of B.
Yeah, we can do it. We can move them if we need to.
Vampire counts. Worst faction in the game or second worst faction in the game?
They're not the worst. I don't think they're worst. They need some help. They need some love, absolutely. Like, their cavalry and stuff like that. Basically, their mobile assets are in a pretty rough spot. Felbats are more or less non-existent. They're kind of just pixels on a screen. Vargeists are fine. They're just really limited. They definitely feel the glass part of that glass cannon. And the cavalry's pretty rough. So yeah, overall, they have strong lords, like good old Manny von Boldstein, classic Old Faithful there. He is really strong, but just, they have to do so much for the faction. It's just pretty tough.
Do you agree with D tier?
Sure. Or is D tier the lowest?
D tier is the lowest.
God, I always feel mean when I put them in the bottom one. Like, in my tier list, I have an extra bottom one I just have just so I can leave it blank. Sure, fine.
Dude, for me, it's like literally Norska and Vampire Counts fighting it out at the very bottom.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, poor things.
Alright, Dark Elves.
Dark Elves, I'd put, like, low A tier, high B.
Yeah.
Leaning towards low A.
I'd say low A as well. I've been not a hater on Dark Elves, but I haven't been exactly a believer either recently until after the last tier list. I started playing a bit of Dark Elves, and their flexibility surprised me because when I play against people, I feel like I know exactly what they're going to bring. And then when I play as Dark Elves, I'm like, oh, I got options. I got some things. So I think they're more flexible than I gave them credit for, which is actually raising them in my eyes. They don't have anything left that is really overpowered, but I feel like they have enough that's strong that they can maintain a presence in A. Like, Cold One Knights after the buffs are strong, Witch Elves after the rework are strong, Malekith's strong-ish, basic Soulstealer caster on Dragon is strong-ish. You could take basic casters, which is what I've been doing. Malice is okay, Lokir is okay, so it's like, I don't know, faction's just like kind of vibing.
Yeah, like a couple things. First of all, the Cold One Night buffs were huge for them, especially because now with look, if anybody, for whoever's in his audience who watches my channel, they know I'm a big believer in the power of the ellipse sized model. Ever since Cold Nights, they got switched from capsule to ellipse size model. They make much better contact on the charge, which means they're against large, they're more or less the same. They're better now because of their other buffs, but
Yeah.
against infantry in particular, they actually do clear them pretty decently well, especially like light infantry. So that really does give them some extra flexibility because now it's like your armor piercing anti-large specialist can also help clear out some chaff for you, which can be pretty good if you're an elf faction that's relatively expensive. You need to clear out those big old swarms. So that's pretty helpful. And also like their lord slot is way more diverse than it used to be. Because like every single battle was like 95% of the time the Supreme Sorceress of Dark on a Black Dragon with Soul Stealer. Or maybe Malice, and that's kind of all you saw. But now like even guys like Lokir have some viability. Cronebone, I think, is actually slept on her Manticore. She can actually be pretty solid. Malekith and Mount Marathi are both pretty useful. They just have like so many tools in the toolbox.
I think my only hot take there would be Marathi. I don't rate Marathi as high after I learned how expensive she is with even just like, I think I took her on Sulfit is her mount. Yeah, because,
Yeah.
yep. I took her with just her Dark Pegasus, her Bound Doombolt, Melkoth's, and then Life Leeching and Soul Stealer. And she was something like 1,700 gold for pretty bad combat. And I was like, oh, I've just been taking a basic Sorceress personally, like on
Yeah, I can see that.
non-flying horseback, and then I go wider. But
hmm
yeah, they're good. Like they have a lot of good options.
And like Witch Elves, I remember when they first lost their rampage, people were so spooked that they were gonna fall off hard, but they are so good.
They're so
That
good.
Witch crew of theirs, they just buzzsaw through infantry like it's nothing.
If you don't have 3 Witch Elves at least, and if you don't have 4 Coldland Knights in every single build, you're trolling.
Yeah, pretty much, more or less. Like I've been hoping, like we're gonna talk about them in sometime later, but Norska, man, the Berserkers. I wish that they would switch their current passive. I think it's like it takes like 90 seconds to charge up. I wish they would switch that to something like Witch Brew for the Witch Elves.
That would be pretty good. But that is a different
hmm
faction. I will not allow
Sure,
you to
sure,
get distracted.
sure.
Now, you allegedly play High Elves. Where are they going?
Allegedly, I would put them in probably like low mid B.
Okay.
I'd say they'd be here for a second when they got that brief period when the Fireborn were sort of the new hot one in town. I would have put them arguably like high B, low A, but especially with this DLC, a few factions and stuff, bit of a rising tide coming up here, and they themselves haven't been super great beneficiaries of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think they kind of did fall off a little bit, but they're still good.
Mm-hmm.
Like they still do have like a few units in particular that do help them a lot, particularly like the Archmages are still very, very good lords. I would think, especially now that Wrathmongers are a thing, I do think Alariel does have a tech for the Khorne matchup with Shield of Thorns, which can actually be useful against them. Just send like something cheap at the Wrathmongers, and they'll actually get surprisingly good damage. And then the rest of your magic is just for healing. Just spam out healing on your Dragon Princes. But yeah, Fireborn Dragon Princes in particular are really big for you. Your spears are still good for people who forget that Burning Head exists, or just factions that don't have it. And your Dragon Lords are like Imric, and your Archmages are good. Your Archers are really good. Lawton Seaguard, I'm not too sold on, but Archers are very, very good. So those are good. And otherwise, you have some stuff that's like, oh, I forgot to mention Reavers. Reavers are very, very good. Excellent. Your Light Cavalry is great. Your Fireborn are fantastic. Your Dragon Princes are decent. Silverhelm suck ass, but yeah, your Light Cavalry is really good. And then other stuff like War Lines. Okay, there's like a sort of a civil war, a bit of a sundering too, you can say, between High Elf mains about War Lines. I put them in the camp of they're like fine, but with an asterisk. Where like the main reason that they're good is because High Elves are so starved for a multi-model armor-piercing unit that has mobility, because they really struggle for that. So I think they get inflated, but overall, I would say they are a pretty like just solid, good faction.
Okay. So here's why they're S tier.
Okay.
500 gold spears,
Mhm.
85 melee defense, a million HP, unbreakable.
True. And in the Slaanesh, you'll see they're all going to get immune to flanking, of course.
All right, I'll get more serious, but I am currently I'm on full tilt with all of the Elven factions because like 550 gold Illyrian Reavers will come back to the battlefield with 2 models, splitting a single HP between them. Each
Oh yeah,
model
that
has
Elven
half of
leadership.
an HP, and they're like, "No, we can kill your poison wind globes," and I'm like, "That's whatever. That's okay."
Okay. Yeah, that elven leadership is something they have going for them, of course. That is a strength they have. I do think they still do really feel those low HP pools. And another thing is also because, like, elves, the big thing for them is stats, right? They got great stats. The problem is, and this is something that I guess people are probably going to be more cognizant of now that vigor effects do show on the stat cards, is those are some of the things that are hurt the most by loss of vigor. Like, melee attack in particular, you lose like 30% of it when you're exhausted. And they're not like the Lizardmen where they have this really easily accessible vigor punishment, right? Because all the high elves have is regrowth, which got nerfed, and then you have the Omen of Historian, which costs like an arm and a leg, and isn't even on that good of a monster. So it's like, yeah, they definitely feel the vigor effects, so stuff like that. So I think that does mitigate their strengths. But yeah, they definitely do have the strengths, which is a big part of why I would say they are B tier faction.
Yeah, I'll put them in high B. I don't think they break into A like the Dark Elves because there's a little less flexibility. It's like you're dealing with a spear line or you're dealing with Dragon Princes and healing. There are technically other things on paper, but not things that I've seen in
Like they have asterisks to them.
yeah, nothing I've seen
Yeah.
in like competitive settings. And when they get tried, they're usually kind of like funny, but not that effective.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're a little more predictable than Dark Elves.
Mm-hmm.
Warriors of Chaos. I have been enjoying the Warriors of Chaos. I don't think they're very good, which is weird because every DLC spills some more units into their roster, it seems, but somehow they don't rise up the tier list.
This time they got Khorne Gores, but apparently that's a bug because in the next hotfix they're going to get rid of it.
Yeah, so they don't really have Khorne Gores, and it's like, okay. I think the biggest problem with the Warriors of Chaos is, you know how the Empire is the jack of all trades faction?
Yeah.
These guys are like the two of all trades, and then they don't get some of the trades because like their monstrous infantry isn't the best monstrous infantry in the game, not even close. Like fucking trolls. They just got blood beasts, which are all right, but people are in a constant argument with me about whether blood beasts are even good at all because you can have minotaurs, and I'm like, okay, but the Warriors of Chaos don't get minotaurs, so it's like, depending on which side of the argument they're on, they got blood beasts which are good or blood beasts that aren't that good at all, and it's the best monstrous infantry the Warriors of Chaos have, and that's supposed to, it's kind of supposed to be one of their things. Like when they first came out, it was like Chaos Spawn and Trolls, but Chaos Spawn and Trolls have been left completely behind by the power curve of the game.
Yeah, like you can kind of make like a double or triple chaos trolls, like the armored ones, work with Archaon because he gives them the his like crown item, gives them the immune psychology and some leadership.
Yeah.
You can kind of make it work, but it's still they're just they definitely feel their weaknesses.
Yeah, they're not terrible, but they're not best in class either.
Yeah,
it's similar with Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights are all the rage in the meta, but it's the gods. The gods Chaos Knights have like buffs and stuff that make them good. Base Chaos Knights are pretty whatever.
Like for a little while, oddly enough, for a little while they had a bit of a saving grace here because with that monstrous infantry bug that was going on for the first few days of the patch, oddly enough, Skull Crushers were one of the few units that actually got better because of it, because they just happened to get just better, I guess, luck of the draw with the underlying coding on their animations. So they were actually good for a little bit, but now they're just back to being nothing. At least Rot Knights are a little bit better now that they got their buffs. I think they got more armor and leadership, so they can be a bit more usable. But overall, they really do struggle because like they have some pretty sturdy infantry, like good sturdy infantry, but their actual hammers aren't really there, and obviously they don't really have range either. So like when you don't have melee hammers, you kind of just survive for a long time and then just die.
And they're not, they're not trash. I'm not putting them in D tier, but like I do think they need some buffs because as some YouTube comments have noted, CA is adding more and more infantry killing things every single patch and every single DLC, and like the infantry meta is not something that I'll miss. I think infantry spam to win games is pretty boring.
Yeah,
but like
there's a balance.
There's a balance. And we're getting to the point where infantry doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, more or less. Like you kind of just throw a bunch of cheap stuff out there, maybe one or two elites, especially if it's something that's busted. But usually, if you see like an expensive infantry that gets taken a lot, that's usually because it's pretty severely overtuned. Yeah, generally speaking, like the mid tiers in particular are really struggling right now.
And to remind people, we are thinking of both game modes. Yes, in Conquest, in theory, I know the comments are going to say, someone's going to throw out like, oh, but you can get like Festus and like multiple chosen with halberds and stuff and whatever. I mean, sure, but like I said, more and more stuff is getting added to the game to kill those fools. Like chariots are getting fixed, and if you break their charge defense with cheap infantry and then charge chariots in, you can still get a lot of damage out.
Yeah. CA's
Still,
passing collision attacks out to monsters like it's candy. You know, it's like everyone's getting it.
yeah, the Dread Saurian now actually just piles through Chosen with halberds and kills them very quickly with collision attacks. So it's like, even thinking of blobbing on the point, it needs to be hyper specific what faction you're against, and it's like, okay,
Especially now since in Conquest, it's 600 points to get a win instead of 500, which is a difference between like that 2.5 minutes or so. That actually does matter, make a big difference.
which that is, not to be too negative. Why I'm happy we're not in infantry meta is like Conquest would be boring if we were in infantry meta.
It'd be just like, yeah, two just massive hordes of infantry just awkwardly dry humping each other for like 9 minutes until somebody wins. It's just like, that's just not fun.
Yeah, you want mobility to be strong. You want infantry clearing tools, but there is not everything needs to be infantry clearing.
Yes, thank you. So Warriors of Chaos and like just they kind of are like the mid-tier infantry faction. Like the Chaos Warriors are supposed to be something really big, like a staple for them, but they're just not doing good right now. They just kind of like survive for a long time until they're just dead, and their monstrous infantry just does not hit hard enough, generally speaking, and their cav as well.
I am gonna throw out a hot take, and I need you to reel me back in.
What if I agree with it though?
Slaanesh is high B tier. So I didn't think this until literally yesterday, and I fought Pigman's Demons of Chaos with Empire, and I'm like, okay, I need to get ready for single entity cheese and whatever. He took a full Slaanesh build for the Demons of Chaos and just ran me over with Seekers, Heart Seekers, and Fiends.
Yeah, Seekers are busted. Heart Seekers are very good too, but Seekers especially because they're cheaper. Yeah, they are insane. They're like keep in mind Fiends. They got, of course, the HP nerf, but they still are really good. They still hit like trucks. They're still crazy fast, and even their HP, like they have the same HP as a Croxigore, so they still are pretty tanky, especially by Slaanesh standards. And then Seekers now, again, the Cult of the Ellipse. Okay, they got that model shape change, and now they hit like absolute trucks. And so it's pretty nuts, especially like deleting monsters. They do it insanely well because also their models are pretty small, so they can actually get a lot of them making contact at once. So yeah, they're insanely good.
Do you agree that they're above High Elves?
Yes, I would put them above High Elves. Yes,
Let's go.
especially because you also have like their Furies are still very very good, especially just being that flying, aggressive infantry is just so good right now. Their Rampage is still great. Azazel's an amazing lord. And yeah, even Nikari is actually better now because it's splash attack targets are more optimized, so he can just kill things more efficiently. But yeah, they're just amazing. Yeah,
Man.
they are definitely much better than they used to be. They were in the pits for a long time, but now they are definitely a very strong faction. Not oppressive, but strong.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to be pissed about that one. A lot of Slaanesh mains are going to be like, no.
I don't know if I would put them high B. I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger on that. Like if it was just me by myself doing my own tier list, I probably would have just put them B. Above High Elves, but like at the very least B, I would say at least.
Yeah, but like then I'd have to move High Elves down.
I mean, yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, keep in mind, I said low B, mid B.
All right, okay, all right. I'll make some space at the top, but
another thing to bear in mind is their Chaos Ward, their armored infantry is still really durable. Like they can still grind really well.
Yeah, they
so
can.
You also have that in the back pocket too. So it's just
The Marauders are some of the best Marauders in the game.
The ICP on your Marcus Land for your whole army is so good.
Yeah. Now their Marauders won't win you games, but it is a little more stalwart than Khorne Marauders. Which Khorne Marauders, I rant about them constantly. I don't know how those guys have such a good stat card that doesn't translate. Like, I don't know. They look amazing on paper and they never live up to it.
But yeah, it's weird. Like even in battle, I'll be running down some chaff or something with them, and I'll be thinking like, oh, they're doing a good job. Okay, then I look at the stat card, and it's like, okay, you didn't do shit. Like what's going on here? So yeah, I don't know.
Scabrinos. I don't know. I still think they're kind of where they were last patch. Definitely not S tier, but somewhere in A.
Rock solid A tier, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a Skaven main. They're not the most. Actually, they're probably in the perfect spot because they're strong and they probably need nerfs, but they're not the most oppressive faction, so they're not getting banned constantly. So if you're a Skaven main, you're eating good.
They're in that sweet spot, yeah. Because having to deal with armor, like an actually stalwart infantry with the Stormvermin and halberds against Skaven is so brutal. Because so much around them is about like, okay, our shit routes really fast, but we also deal a ton of damage. So let's see if we can just scramble and see how we can make that work. Except now, Okay, some of our shit doesn't route now, and we also have more multi-model mass with the Doom Flayers, so it just like becomes a little bit easier for them. Which, for with how much Skaven firepower they bring, that's actually pretty big. So yeah, and also Ica Claw is still just a destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, Cleansing Rune's still a crazy spell.
Mhm.
A lot of the
Yeah,
other
it got
spells are
nerfed.
okay.
Yeah, it got nerfed, but with unlimited power, he gets enough wins and magic. He can still get just as many flensings as normal. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's also like the individual power of the spell. Its wins and magic
Mhm.
cost is high, but I mean, one or two of them you can kill a foot caster.
It's worth
So
it. Like it's so good that like you can cast it on just one single entity, and if it's like a good lord, then it's like still worth it, right? You don't need to get like two or three in one.
I'm getting triggered though how long Cleansing Rune has been meta, and I still see people grab it and like cast it on a blob of 3 infantry, and I'm like, no, that is doing
Yeah,
literally less damage than a single warp
I'm
lightning
pretty
cast.
sure. Like it says on the tooltip, like good versus single entities, right?
Yeah. No,
So
it's
I
not.
don't
It's not a
know. I
blob
don't get
punishment
that.
tool. It's specifically for sniping single entities.
Strong versus a single combatant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong versus characters. It says it twice. Strong versus characters. Strong versus single combatant. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Well, we should speak about the other things that are just saying it's obvious it's A tier for anybody who doesn't know. Night Runners,
Right.
Gunner Runners got buffs a while ago, so now their skirmish is pretty good, especially for how cheap they are. Gives them some decent anti-air too, which they already had a
Yeah.
lot of range, but 360 shooting is better at anti-air because you can't just fly directly above it and then it can't shoot. It's like, okay, we'll just shoot you anyway. Rat Ogres have been feeling the love of all the monsters changes. You mentioned Doomflayers got buffed. Their infantry got buffed, so they've just been kind of enjoying buffs on everything except for Poisonwind Globes and like Jezzails, which they were already good at range. So
Yeah.
they're the best ranged faction in the game, and they got a bunch of melee buffs. So yeah, they're going to be pretty damn strong.
It's pretty big. The only weakness you can really point to is like their mutant rat ogres. Their like single entity monsters are mostly okay. Help and Abomination still sucks ass. Mutant rat ogres still get punted like crazy, but like brood horrors, like and like some of the hero mounts and the lord mounts can be pretty decent. So at least you got some work there as well. But yeah, just overall they're just so damn good.
Brood horrors are like dragons. Stand alone, they're garbage, but as a mount, they're some of the best in the game.
Yeah.
It's really weird to get your head around that, but it's like, yeah, never take the naked brood horror.
Yeah, like it's just, and also just one last thing about the Storm Vermin. It's just hard for me to overstate how big that was, because I've even seen them like Skaven going against Vampire Counts, and the Skaven outgrind the Vampire Counts with like a 4 Storm Vermin Halberd build, and Naked Claw just getting like 6,000 value. It's pretty crazy. They are very, very good.
I don't discredit what you said about the Skaven. I'm
Counts do
adding
stuff there, I know. Yeah.
I'm adding to it. Yeah, a lot of shit can outgrind the counts right now.
Yeah,
There's
so
a reason they're in D tier.
Yeah, I say them because historically that's been a tough matchup, and
Yeah.
Storm Vermin Halberds do a lot to help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Buffs go one way, but also like, man, someone help the vampire counts.
Yeah, the
Please.
four things. Just yeah, I think it's just until they get their Nagash DLC, then they'll become the Destroyer of Worlds.
Looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is also a change for me. I have been trying to calm the community down about Demons of Chaos for a while, but I'm finally going to acquiesce. These guys are the second best faction in the game. They're so oppressive. Burning Chariot of Tzeentch got buffs, and I got shown that it can fire at melee, and it's really strong.
Yeah, and they got 3 more ammunition now, so they're just even better.
Yeah, Changebringer Cheese has always been a thing. Plague Drone, grenade launcher guys are very strong. So like, Demons of Chaos Sky Cheese is unbelievably strong and annoying.
And now they have Seekers.
And then they have the Seekers. The thing that brought Slaanesh from C or D tier up to B is also on this roster. So now they have a very strong mobility core. They've always had pretty good lords. And their infantry is objectively garbage. But like, whenever I fight Demons of Chaos, just no one brings any frickin' infantry. It's just SE spam.
Just
Soul
throw like
Riders.
Nurglings at them just to get some bodies down there, and then otherwise let your Seekers and like your your range stuff like Changebringers, whatever, let them do the work.
Nah, dude, what I've been running into even more than that is like a Soul Grinder, a Skull Cannon, or a Soul Grinder of Tzeentch or Nurgle, a Skull Cannon or something, and then air cheese, or a Skull Cannon or a Soul Grinder or something, and then Seekers, or air cheese and Seekers. But I don't even see infantry anymore. Like all these builds, the model counts are like 401. Because for anyone who doesn't know, we play by tournament rules, which you need to have at least 400 models. And Demons of Chaos armies are like always just what is technically legal. because I don't want to take any
Yeah.
infantry, and that's where all the model counts come from. So whatever is technically legal, here's one blue horror I'm going to throw at your front line, and the rest of this is just like kite and cav.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal. Especially one thing that does kind of mitigate them a bit is they do require skill to handle, but if you're against experienced players who know how to use them, they can do so much work.
Yeah, it's if my opponent is good, like a good player at the game, and they global ban nothing, I legitimately want to surrender because I'm like, I can't ban both Dwarves and Demons of Chaos, and I just don't want to play this series.
Yeah, it's rough, man. It's brutal.
But all right, very very strong. And I think the only thing we didn't touch on is their single entity blob is still very powerful if you're ever a faction that doesn't have a lot of range. So it's like, you know, a Mortis Engine caster, usually the Exalted Grid Unclean one, and then a couple Plague Bearers to stand around his feet, Uncle Frunkle, two Bloodthirsters in the sky, something like that. And you can just have a pretty powerful single entity blob. So Demons of Chaos.
Yeah, if your opponent just doesn't have the range to be able to kill that, then they're just screwed pretty much, like on build.
I'm fine with demons being strong for once in their life. I'm not trying to demand they get nerfed back into the ground, but I would like to see a lot of buffs to demonic infantry, and I would like to see a lot of nerfs to Sky Cheese and some of their single entities. And it's like
Bringers, Angels of Decay, stuff like that. Yeah.
The Cav being strong is fine. I don't think that's worn out its welcome yet. So it's like if I had a wave of the wand, it's like, all right, buff the shit out of their infantry, nerf the shit out of air cheese, and this faction can still stay strong. But I hate their
you can still like interact with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hate their current strength. Tomb Kings, a contentious topic.
I'd say still A tier.
Still A.
Maybe like right below Skaven, I think. Because Cetra did take a nerf. It was a bit of a ninja nerf, but a nerf nonetheless.
What was the ninja
He
nerf?
lost some. The War Sphinx in particular lost a little bit of its attack intervals, slightly lower, so it attacks slower often. It still does clear infantry incredibly well. He's just slightly less worse at not as good at dueling.
Gotcha. I'm kind of surprised you put him below Skaven. I don't necessarily disagree. I was just ready because I'm a Tomb King's apologist. Like, I don't play a ton of them, but I also personally, when I fight them, I don't feel like they're that bullshit. I usually feel like when I lose, it's because I made mistakes, and when I win, it's because I played well. But like, I know they're a talking point right now where people are just like, can't beat them, they're too good at everything, they're too strong and all that stuff. I just like, personally, I don't feel it, and I still, when my opponent picks Tomb Kings, I'm usually ready for a pretty fun game.
Generally speaking, it is pretty fun. They are undead just by virtue of that, and like they don't route. That on its own is going to have some people who just don't like playing against them. Yeah. Like I'm not really a fan of undead, but Tomb Kings, I'd say that they're the good undead faction. They're still pretty fun. They of course do have those really strong range units like Boshopti and stuff like that. Sepulchre Stalkers can maybe catch you off guard, or at the very least be a pretty good like bodyguard unit. And then also the regular, I still say the Necronite Halberds, they got buffs, but I still say they're just underwhelming. The regular ones are just so much better.
Yeah, the Halberd Knights are pretty underwhelming. I think the only thing annoying about them, and I pick annoying specifically, is the two cats, the two Tomb Kings cats running around, and it's like, yeah, it's not the most interactive gameplay. Everyone's kind of over single entity monsters trying to carry whole games, but also like if Cetra gets surrounded by the Fireborn, he dies. So it's more interactive than some of the single entity squads out there, like the Chaos Dwarf Train, for example, where that one, it's like, wow, it feels bad to even trap you. It's like, no, at least the Tomb King's cats have to pick the correct fights. So,
yeah, part of it might be me just trying to like counterbalance, because I know my number one main is Lizardmen, who do really struggle in the Tomb Kings. Especially because like how many times I have these armor-piercing anti-large Cold and Spear Riders right on Cetra's ass, and he just waltzes away and chooses to just not take the engagement, and they just don't hit him when he's running away. And they're like the same speed as him too. It's just God, it's brutal. But overall, I would say that they're pretty good. They're very, very strong, but not like, I don't feel like them being oppressive or anything like that. I don't feel like there's like a lot of bullshit with them. It's mostly just like a kind of preference thing with like undead, but they still are just very strong, but not oppressive.
Don't hate me. A light Slann and triple Razordons.
Razordons, dude. I'm the hunting packs in general. I am their number one hater. Like I know I'm a Lizardman main, but I hate these two units in particular. They always feel so janky to me.
We'll get to the Lizardmen, but like,
yeah, I don't want to like.
Dude, I hate Salamander hunting packs. I think that shit is wildly overrated. Razordons, real good, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Nurgle, C above Warriors of Chaos for me. Any Any thoughts?
Yeah, they're like sort of right around that ballpark. I don't know if I put them at the very bottom, but they are definitely close to it, I do think. But still just good enough to where they avoid that treacherous D tier.
Yeah, they're kind of, they share a story with the Warriors of Chaos.
Hmm.
They have strong infantry, but that is increasingly not the way to win games.
Yeah.
So
Pestigors took a nerf, which did hurt them a little bit, and otherwise a lot of their infantry has the same problem that the Warriors of Chaos infantry does, where they last for a long time, but then they eventually just die and you just lose. Right?
yeah,
A
they
big
get
thing for
out.
them is like, oddly enough, I'd say their monstrous units are also kind of undertuned the same way Warriors of Chaos are. Like Plague Ogres are definitely too expensive, and same with like Battle Trolls. So like if they got a bit of a cost decrease, I do think they definitely could be in a really good spot. But yeah.
Yeah. Thrones of Decay came out, two factions rose to the top and one rose to the middle, and since then has
Mhm.
fallen a bit as more and more infantry clearing gets added, and it's like, man,
Yeah, pretty much.
rip Nurgle. Because their infantry is
Mhm.
good. It's just not a thing that matters right now.
Yeah, just factions are just better at dealing with them now.
Uh, I don't have too much else to say on Nurgle, honestly. They're
Not a lot. Oh, one thing I will say, Tamarkan. Okay, if you take him on foot, okay, his mass is what, 2,500? Still 2,500? Yeah. Now have him stand next to Throg and have him stand next to Nakai, who have 4,000 mass. Why does my big man Tammy? Why does he have so little mass? I just wish. Okay, on the extremely off chance someone at CA watches this, just make him 4,000. What's the problem? Why not?
yeah.
That's my big complaint about them. That's my bugaboo. I think he needs to be have more mass so he's more viable.
He's pretty expensive too for just a basic combat lord, which like I know he's got some serious, he's got some good stats, but I think like if you want a combat lord that can't fly, I think their price point needs to be around 1,800, or they need to go home because I think he's 2,000 with a lot of the kit I want to bring him with, but maybe I'm misremembering. I don't
Like
know.
if you take him, I think his base cost is like 1450. You take him with like the Black Cleaver and Nurgle's favorite son, then he gets like 1850.
Okay.
My main issue with him is like at his mass, he still gets stuck up in infantry a lot, and we kind of had that problem with like Throg and Nakai for a while. And CA they buffed their mass, and now they're good, fine lords. But yeah, I think Tammy they got to go through that same process.
I haven't thought about this to back it up, but I'm going to throw it out there as a hot take to drive the comment section crazy, which buffs the YouTube algorithm, so whatever.
What's your list of four?
No. So all monstrous infantry lord models like Nakai, Throg, Tarmakan, they should just get Strider or whatever it is that lets ghost units path through their own infantry, like literally go through the models.
Wait, that okay? What you're thinking of is different from Strider, because that's like Chameleon Skinks have that,
Yeah, what
right?
is
That
that
makes it
thing?
so that they what is it again? Let me try to read it. Basically, just ignores like terrain penalties to like speed and combat stats, right? So it just ignores those. What is the which one are you thinking of? I'm trying to remember what it's called.
Yeah, but there is something where they like can path through their own units. I don't know.
Does the ethereal thing? Ethereal units ignore most damage done by non-magic. Okay, it doesn't say anything like that.
No, because in League of Legends, it's a concept called ghosting. When you use
Yeah,
the
I don't
summoner
know.
spell
Do they
Ghost,
have
you can
that?
walk through your own troops.
I mean, I'd be fine if they had that. Yeah, if they can go through their own troops specifically. Yeah, go for it.
Because
Okay.
it would decrease some like believability if you took a screenshot and you're like, look here, Throg's leg goes through this marauder, and I'm like, yeah, but at least he can fucking get out of his own infantry.
Yeah, it's the most annoying thing trying to pull out of your own like an engagement and like you're going through your own guys and you're getting stuck up by your own like skinks or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be down for it.
I won't complain. If my man Nakai gets that buff, I'll take it.
Because the big mounted lords have enough mass to get through, and infantry-sized characters, that should be a drawback that they can't get through. But
Yeah.
monstrous guys are like, why am I stuck
I
in
mean,
my
that all
own
could go
troops?
wrong. Yeah.
If you're a marauder in Throg's horde and he told you to get the fuck out of the way, you get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, true, right? Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, just give it to him. Yeah, go get on it.
All right, Greenskins. Oh boy, Greenskins. Dude, I don't. My answer on this fluctuates because the hot fixes came so quick. Mangler squigs
Yeah.
were the king of the world, and then got immediately slapped down, and it's like,
Like
oh,
drop like a stone, just spike down into the pits. Yeah, or not the pits. Like they still have their uses, but you know what I mean.
I'm gonna go with A. You could disagree, but I'll start this one off. I'm gonna go with A. Above Dark Elves, below Tomb Kings. They still have the cheapest source of rampage in the entire game, and the Night Goblin War Boss.
Mhm.
Gorbat is a solid lord. I don't think he's their best lord, but he is fine. He's added to the things you could see. So it's like, well, now you have the Night Goblin War Boss, Azhag, and Gorbad. But then Warzag got buffs, so you might start seeing Warzag. Grom the Paunch got big buffs, so you're definitely going to see him. I already see Grimgor in a couple matchups. So it's like their lords are slowly becoming more diverse, which 2 or 3 patches ago, it was literally the Night Goblin War Boss who you were trolling. So like they're getting more options there. The Arachnarok Flinga is actually a really good unit. The Arachnarok Spider got some buffs. Black Orcs got big buffs. So it's like they got a lot of buffs. I don't think they're kings of the world right now, but I do think they shouldered their way into A tier even without the Mangler Squigs.
Yeah, I think they still do feel some weakness, like the infantry weakness, in the sense that a lot of their like mid-tier orcs definitely do feel the same kind of pain that like Warriors of Chaos Warriors and stuff like that feel. And they do, of course, are a very low leadership faction. They definitely feel that weakness, so that's kind of what holds them back. But overall, like there's just like your cavalry is really cost effective. You swarm really well. You have Gorbad now who can beef up their stats, so that one weakness of theirs with low combat stats goes away. And you still have just a bunch of other really good lords. You got one more caster lord, which is always a useful option to have. It's just, yeah, they just have so much good stuff going for them.
All right. Do you agree with my placement?
I would have put them like high B, but I'm not going to completely object to where you put them.
I think they're better than Dark Elves, and for me, that's what puts them in A. It's like, well, if Dark Elves are at the bottom of A, then Greenskins are one above them.
Okay, fair enough.
Tzeentch.
Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I don't know. I don't know if I even have a strong opinion on Tzeentch, honestly. You go for it.
Okay, so Tzeentch, they didn't. I don't think they got worse, because Centaurs got worse, obviously. Their Exalted Lord of Change got like a surprisingly big cost increase. I didn't know people were asking for that. They got like 200 or something. But they also got Burning Chariots of Tzeentch. When I don't know when they did this change. Maybe it's been around for a long time. But like Human Boy alluded to before, they basically can fire while in melee, which if they're like fighting like cavalry or something like that, they will do so much damage. Because it's armor piercing like flamethrower damage, like right in the face. And they just got buffed. They got like 25% more ammunition. So yeah, they're very strong. So I think it's kind of a lateral change. But at the same time, a bunch of other factions have gotten better in the past, like, patch cycle and whatever, DLC cycle. So I would probably put them in the A tier range. I don't think they necessarily have gotten worse. It's just other factions have gotten better at dealing with them.
Above Skaven, below Skaven.
They're pretty close. Like I think you can argue either way. I have no strong leaning either way.
All right. I'll put him slightly above just because in the hands of a good player, Blue Fire spam and Kite is still really, really potent. But I do agree that like they're interchangeable in power level. Either is fine. I'll leave Tzeentch above him for now. Just have a little more cheese in the tank. Stupid change bringers.
Yeah, basically just like if you can abuse like the Protoss shields and stuff like that, you can do a lot of work with them. It's just a bit harder to do that, or at least more other factions have a better way of dealing with that.
Is Norska below vampire counts?
I put them above vampire counts. I think they are very much a one-trick pony. They have a very, very restricted roster. However, I think they can very much surprise people better than the vampire counts can, in the sense that they're just stronger than you're expected to dealing with. Because everybody kind of thinks of them as being in the pits, but still, their range units like the Marauder Hunter Javelins, if you are not prepared for them, they will do so much work into your big stuff. The Skirmish Cavalry is okay. Skin Wolves are still really good. They're just having to carry so damn much that it's kind of tough for them, but they still are very useful for you. And to be fair, I know we talked about them not having generic caster lords, but at least they have one legendary caster lord with Wolfric with that lore boats coming in who can do some okay work. But yeah, overall they just very, very limited roster, which is why they're in the pits. I just think that they're the best of the factions that are in the pits.
So here's the thing. Berserker's got 2 more walk speed.
Well, that changes things.
Damn
See,
right.
I did not know this.
A tier.
Sure,
No.
A tier.
And they got, in this last patch, they got Skylia or whatever that hero's name
Yeah,
is.
but the one time they get something for free from these DLCs instead of the Beastmen, and it's fucking Skyla.
Yeah, he sucks. Ogren, maybe the biggest glow up. Flying Taco argued they were B tier last patch, but everyone else in that call argued they were much lower. Taco was just on one. With the DLC, I honestly would put them in A or S tier.
Yes.
The Thunder Tusk is a crazy addition where I don't know if it's bugged or intentional, but the little javelin throwers on its back do as much damage as the giant snowball, and they're much more accurate. So it's like it has 3 shots per volley.
Yeah, it's got an anti-large shot. It's got an anti-infantry shot with the snowball. It's just and it's in melee. It's very, very good. So yeah, and it's of course a great healing target. So crazy good monster.
Pigback riders are really good. I think there's a little bit of hysteria around them. I don't think they're as oppressive as people say, but they are good. But I think they are manageable, but that doesn't mean just because you can kill something doesn't mean it's not strong and doesn't move them up the tier list. I just don't think that they need to be like banned.
I think the problem is like they're a spear unit that on the charge also trades up into infantry because they have this crazy charge bonus, and that uncanny coordination makes them way tankier than you would think, especially for their price point. And the biggest problem to me is that because CA didn't give them animations for like being knocked down and getting back up, they just don't get knocked down into like large stuff, which is the kind of thing you would expect to be able to cycle charge a light cavalry, light unit like that, especially because they're not a charge defense unit, right? So it's not like you got to worry about them getting braced. So, but they still can just countercharge you so well because all of their models are hitting because they don't get knocked back. Like cavalry can't interact with them the way they do pretty much any other infantry unit in the game. So, yeah, it just makes for them a very awkward interaction, and they do trade up into pretty much most of their peers, like in their chaff in their price range, which is a big help. So, yeah, I think they're definitely overtuned, especially the ROR. The ROR's nuts.
Okay, the ROR is completely insane. I got that one for sure. I think the basic ones are kind of like Skin Wolf levels of strong to me, where it's like, yes, this unit is crazy strong, but if you put it on a less strong roster, it wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Yeah.
Where like Skin Wolves objectively need nerfs, but Norska is so pathetic without them that no one has entertained that idea in a while.
But yeah, they carried that back in so hard.
Yeah, but the Pigback Riders are on a roster that doesn't need them to carry it, so they stand out more. That's my opinion on it. The ROR is insane. That's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah.
But so Pigback
the
Riders
regular one, like the cost increase to 400 from 375 was still nice. It was good to see. I think they could still use a bit more, or at least like reduce their charge bonus, but they're not nearly as bad as they used to be.
Yeah, and monstrous infantry are working again, so those can kind of help clear out. Now they'll trade well into monster stuff, but when monstrous infantry literally was doing no damage, that also made them much better.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, the Pigback Riders are really good. The new mount gives them more kite options because the Iron Blaster and Nobbler Scrap Launcher are terrible in melee. So at least this is like, okay, we can kite you and then transition into melee when we want to charge stuff down. The Blood Vulture things are pretty amazing, predictably.
Yeah, I'd say they're really good. Like they're not like Onyx Chroman on release levels of good because because the lower model count means they just don't do as much damage as them or like Furies do, but they still are really strong. They just open up so much for the Ogre Kingdoms.
And then your Lord's got a lot of buffs with a lot of the ability reworks, like Greasus and the Paymaster have Rampage now. They have a whole extra ability, that like coin toss thing. So a lot of buffs going the Ogre's way, but we haven't actually placed them yet. I sat them in S while we talked, but I actually don't know where you think they are.
I don't know if I put them S tier. I would say like maybe A tier, low A tier, something like that.
Low A.
Especially with like Thunder Tusk limited or some of the limits we have, like Pigback Riders limited to 3 because we are taking into account like Vermin League limits, right?
Yeah.
That's and the ROR Pigback Knights are banned, right?
Okay, you're correct. So with the Vermin League limits, which for people who are watching may not know, our tournaments, well, at least my tournaments are run with a couple custom rules to try and not necessarily balance things, but like even the playing fields a little bit. Thunder Tusks are limited to 1, and Pigback Riders are limited to 3, and the ROR is banned outright. So without any of those, I definitely agree with A. I would put them between Skaven and Tomb Kings. I think they're above Tomb Kings, but I do think they're beneath Skaven and Tzeentch.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to also mention that there are Slaughtermasters and the what's the hero called? The Butchers also having access to. No one cares about Lord of Heavens, but Lord of Death is just a very nice option to have because gives you like Fate of Buna is I guess just nice to have just in case you want it. But Spirit Leech and Doom of Darkness because I know they have Brain Goblin for that leadership debuff on the Lore of Maw, but at least Doom of Darkness, if you overcast it, now you can get AoE leadership bombs. Yeah. So that's going to be very nice for them. Just it's nice to have that option. Yeah.
Wood Elves. I'd put them in A above Tzeentch. They have had a glow up since Durthu got buffed, but also Wilder Rangers got buffed. A lot of things got buffed, and I feel like people learned how to play them. So not that much changed. In fact, they got a net nerf on this last patch, but I would move them up the tier list just because the understanding of how to play them has increased so much. I'm seeing a lot of different types of builds. There's Mass Vanguard with Dryads, Durthu, Wild Riders and stuff, but then there's Kite with like Way Watchers making a comeback with a bunch of Wild Riders because the Wild Hunters Kurnos got that armor piercing. There's standard Pike and Shot. Like, Wood Elves are really coming into their own as people keep experimenting with them and playing with them, and Durthu is still fucking cracked.
Durthu is amazing. Like, it's insane how good he is. Just he's great at pretty much everything you do, while also being surprisingly cheap at it too. So yeah, great lord there. Yeah, Weight Watcher and Protect is coming back in the meta there, so that's going to be very nice. I've noticed Wood Elf players are also getting even better, like really good about using Sisters of Thorn in tandem with like Wild Riders. Because one of the big thing with Wild Riders is they are pretty squishy, but with that Shield of Thorns, you can pop that onto them. You get 2 of those with each one. You can actually get some really good damage spikes going on there. Especially if you're against another faction that has really good damage dealing cavalry, you can end up swinging that trade pretty damn hard. So yeah, they're just yeah, Wood Elves definitely do have a lot of really good tools, especially now that they also have Wildwood Rangers too. So yeah, just very, very good faction.
I might take heat for this, but Khorne is still in B tier for me. I know a lot of people have been playing them, but the Skull Cannon ROR taking a 200 gold nerf in the recent patch.
I hate that unit so much. It's so dumb.
It's very strong, but I think at 1600 gold or whatever it is now, I don't know if it's even that worth taking, because like it deletes infantry, but the type of infantry you have to delete, you'd have to kill like 3 of them entirely for it to pay for itself.
It depends on the faction. Like, for example, one thing with like if you're going into Cathay, for example, like if you take Wrathmongers, the only thing they have that can possibly stand a chance at beating them is killing it with your range. But the Hellforged Bellowers can then just kill a lot of your range stuff. You can use Furies and stuff like that if you needed to run down the Crane Gunners. Even as a kamikaze thing, it ends up being worth it because Wrathmongers can just destroy everything else. So, yeah, and these guys can just clear out Jades. They can clear out Iron Hill Gunners easily. So, yeah, like, so in some matchups, these guys are like a must-take, like just Destroyer Worlds.
Yeah, I still think they have some bad matchups where they get punished pretty heavily. I've felt quite hopeless against Dark Elves, for example, where it's just Scourge Runner Chariots are good against everything I have.
Yep, yeah.
So they're still a little limited. High of B tier is not a bad place to be. It's towards the top of the middle tier factions. I think they've been steadily rising with every patch to get some buffs, but they still are a little one note. Their Lord pool is getting better, but it's still pretty limited to duelists of various kinds. So I don't know. Like, that sounds more negative than I want to be on Khorne. I think they're top.
Yeah, they're a good faction. They definitely do have a lot of tools at their disposal there. And I will say there is still a chance that CA might remember, like, oh wait, Skull Crushers actually serve fine in our splash changes. So maybe just for these guys, for them and the Blood Crushers, we'll actually give them those splash changes, and then all of a sudden they'll become really good cavalry. And then you get your top tier Khorne, because that would be huge for them.
Yeah, Skull Crushers have been weird since their release. They haven't been impressive, and I feel like they keep getting buffs, and Skull Crushers are just still always meh.
Yeah, I don't really get it. They do have more speed now, which is nice, but yeah, they're just awkward. Strange unit.
The Beastmen.
I say A tier. I say they're still really good. Like, Centaurs did take an eat a nerf, but like with Beastmen in particular, like all that really means is you just get one less Ungor on a faction that doesn't really care about its infantry that much.
Do you think right there?
What's up?
Do you think just right there?
Where's right there? I can't actually see. Hold on a second. I don't see the actual like chart thingy.
Dang it, man! We discussed this before it started.
Hold on a second. So yeah, I've been mostly playing because I'm looking at the other screen. Okay. Hold on a second.
All right. Let me try it again. Desktop.
Because I can see the Photoshop thing. I just can't see the chart. Or I can't see it now. You took it down, but I couldn't see the chart.
That's messed up.
I was going by ear, so I was fine. Like, I haven't been like lost on any of these.
All right, here, try this.
Until you didn't give me context clues. Okay, now I just see your like profile pic.
What?
Yeah, just the profile pic. It's like a.
Share your screen.
Now you're not sharing your
Capture
screen.
devices. Capture screens. Screen 2. Yes. Should see
I
this.
still see your profile pic.
Why?
Because before it showed the application Photoshop, but I just couldn't see the chart
Uh-huh.
for the tier list. It was just a gray screen with your mouse flying around.
That's weird. That's weird. I don't like that.
And to be fair, I didn't see
What if I
anything
share
because
my
I couldn't-
OBS with you?
I still just see your profile picture.
Wait,
And
do
to
you
be
have to...
fair, I didn't say anything because I thought it'd be funnier if I didn't say anything.
That's fair. Do you have to click on like anything in our Discord chat to be like watch stream?
I don't see it, like, because I can see you right now. So I think I already have clicked watch stream or whatever.
Okay. All right. All right. I don't know why Photoshop does this. It's so messed up.
I don't know, might be a Photoshop thing, yeah. So who are you placing it between?
Dark Elves and Greenskins.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. I'll allow it. Carry on, sir. Carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay, so yeah, Beastmen, I would say, like, Malagor's still really good. Flock of Doom did eat a nerf, technically speaking, but it's still really, really strong, especially Overcast, which he's fine with, because, for those who don't know, Malagor is actually fast enough to fly past the miscast cloud, so he doesn't take damage from miscasts. So you can just Overcast Flock of Doom to your heart's content, go for it. And Flock of Doom Overcast is still a great spell, so you can just, like, especially because some people do try to box against Beastmen, because obviously they can get picked apart so well by them, but Flock of Doom just eats up boxes like it's no one's business, so he's still great.
they got
And
Khorne Gores.
yeah, Khorne. Oh yeah, Khorne Gores. Oh my god, these guys are so damn good. We didn't really talk about them. We're talking about Khorne, but getting like plus 15 melee attack on your anti-large halberd unit because you got Frenzy and Primal Fury is just so damn good. Especially because you always also have like your sort of like kind of not worse. I was gonna say Walmart buyer blood, but it's actually still good because it gives you when your HP goes below 50%, which is usually around when your leadership's gonna go below 50%. You get 20 seconds of Unbreakable, which means you get 20 more seconds of both of those buffs active still. So yeah, these guys are just really good. They trade really well into infantry for a halberd unit, and of course they do trade great into big stuff as well.
All right. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem.
What's the problem?
Dark Elves are going to get pushed down into B tier. Just because there's too many dang factions in A tier.
Let me see. He's got a lot of good factions out there.
There's a lot of good factions because one more.
That's fine.
One more's coming.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire. I put them below Wood Elves, but they're A tier. They have fallen a little bit.
Did steam tanks get banned yet, or are they still good? Land ships and steam tanks.
Land ships are banned by fruit rules. Steam tanks are allowed. They did take some speed nerfs that I don't think changed that much. What I do think really changed is the meta, because since Empire has been oppressive, the meta shifted from like infantry and stuff that the steam tank could just roll through ad nauseum and single entities to monstrous mass chariots, cav, and single entities. And it's like, as infantry fall, the Empire's prominence at killing infantry also falls in importance. And now it's like, okay, how well do you do in the monstrous meta? And they're still A tier. I'm not trying to say they're in trouble, but that takes them out of S, where it's like, oh, just flat out monster rushing these fools does pretty well. And now they're getting put on the back foot a little bit. They still have Huntsmen. They have Karl Franz. Damagriff Knights with Halberds recently got buffed, especially the Royal Lodge of Griffites. So they have tools, but I think they fell from S to A. I've found them less ridiculous than our S tier contenders personally. So
yeah, I've been finding myself surprised because like I'll end up in a battle like Lizardmen into Empire, and I'll be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna have fun with it. I'll take Nakai and a Crocs to go rush, and then I just win, and I don't know why. Because yeah, I just think Empire just isn't as well equipped to deal with that stuff. So you just don't really play as well into their strengths. So yeah, I do think they're good. I do still think they're very, very strong. So definitely A tier, like you said, because you still can get even like Balthazar, Gelt, and Huntsman can do really well. Yeah, Toddy's still a good lord. Volkmar is still kind of in a rough spot, unfortunately for him, even though he got his buffs. But still, overall, I do think people still sleep on Elspeth. Just like take her cheap as a Lord Deathcaster. Just take her cheap on on horseback. Use like Spirit Leech, Fate of Buna, and get that other Spirit Leech item thingy she has. So you can get that stuff because that can just be a cheaper caster lord for you. Try to go wider. But yeah, Empire, their infantry itself is a little bit less, because the big thing with them is like, especially their spearmen were just so damn cost effective. They still are amazing, one of the best chaff units in the game, but just having one of the best chaff units in the game isn't as important as it used to be because you can also deal with them better now than before. Because like a bunch of stuff like monsters is still really good. Chariots are getting better. All that stuff is getting buffed up.
Mhm. I think that's another thing is chariots getting buffed. The Empire doesn't really have any. You have war wagons, but that's it. So they're not benefiting from some of these buffs. Okay. All right. Everyone's gonna hate. I accept it. You can disagree. But Lizardmen, I think they slipped into S tier and nobody noticed.
Really?
Dude, they're so good. Red Crested Skinks are insane.
Yeah, those guys, I love them, but the rest of their infantry is either like mediocre or just ass.
Their Cold One Riders got the same treatment as the Cold One Knights, so now my Cold One Riders actually do damage. Quaddles are good. Slans are amazing. Nakai is amazing. I don't know. You got good lords.
I don't know about him being amazing. He's just good. But
okay,
yeah.
He's good. But like you got good lords. Yeah, hell, even great lords. You got terrible heroes. Like their heroes are just fucking garbage.
Yeah, they just trash.
You can skip that entire subcategory of
unit. Priest, I still say like a Skink Priest with just Flock of Doom is good.
Yeah.
But other than that, but like you have Slans, so yeah.
Why not just take the Slans? But Red Crest Skinks are like maybe the best infantry in the game. I might be getting red pilled because I was talking to Black Knight and he just hates Red Crested Skinks.
That's because he's high elves.
I know.
They just put the cavalry.
Every front line I take is 5 Red Crested Skinks, and I feel like I win every frontline fight.
Yeah, they're great. Them and Crocscore is my favorite combination, as it should be, of course.
Yeah, Crocscores are really strong. Cold One Riders are really strong. Cold One Spear Riders are really strong for like the first time in their lives. Ripperdactyls are still really strong. The 425, 360 shooting Skinks are really strong. Chameleon Skinks are pretty solid. Quaddles are good. I think the Bastildons are still really good. Everybody's known that. Every type of Bastildon is actually good right now.
Yeah, all of them are really good.
I really like the Solar Engine Stegodon, the one that fires the laser beam from the sky, because that laser beam got a speed increase, and I honestly don't think you have to cheese it. I don't think you have to invest in like, oh, I need a net caster, and then I need this and this, and it'll make it work. It's like, no, just like treat it like a fucking zero into magic, burning head.
I don't take the basic one. I just take the Henuin with it with just Flock of Doom, and then I just spam Flock of Doom all the time. I get my burning alignments going in, the orbital bombardments, and he just gets a lot of value. Really good stuff. Yeah,
that's
especially against like cav factions. Which is a bit funny for an infantry monster.
I like it versus high elves because you can bunker bust the spear box lines pretty quickly with Henuin on his big mount with Flock of Doom spam and the laser. The laser can either make Sisters of Avalorn reposition. Like, if you get netted in a bad position, but you throw a laser at them, they have to dodge while you're netted. I don't know. So, like, I think people sleep on that monster. But, yeah, good monsters, good infantry. Saurus and basic skinks suck, but the Red Crest skinks are just, like, too good. Armor piercing, decent stats, poison for a cheap price point. It's like, when would I not take these? So, even though you have literally one infantry that everybody knows you're bringing, I still think it's good.
Yeah, they're good. I would say they're good. I don't think they're like super amazing because they still are very, very squishy and they definitely feel that. They're also expensive enough where it's still like justified to like shoot them or use magic on them, like burning head them or something like that. And I do think part of it is just people don't expect Red Crescent Skinks anymore because they just were spent so long out of the meta and now they're just showing up
for so long. But like,
yeah, and even then some Lizardmen builds, I'm still seeing them not really take them. They just take like spam the regular Skinks. But yeah, once people catch on to them, then they're gonna start taking the tools that are good against them. So then they're not gonna be as well. But I still think they're just like a capital G good unit, which is great because the Lizardmen just don't have that many. But yeah, Henuin is good. I like him a lot. Nakai, I like him a lot. The Slans are still really good. Cannons can snipe. Cannon faction can snipe them a lot better now, but they still are very, very nice. And yeah, the cheap skink skirmishers are still good. Chameleon skinks are solid. You just take them if you're you just take them if you're expecting them to get counterfired, because that can actually mean something. But yeah, the cohort javelins really did fall off for me.
Oh, and the Dread Saurian. We haven't seen the blob as much, but like the Dread Saurian got collision attacks, so if you're worried about armored infantry at all, just take the Dread Saurian. He can literally clear an entire roster of armored infantry if you keep it moving.
The Dread Saurian like blob or whatever took like kind of a lateral change, because a decent amount of their just like people are just better at clearing out Temple Guard and Sword Spears, and that's usually your infantry support for the Dread Saurian blob. So yeah, they're better at like the supporting elements aren't as good, but the Dreadsword himself got buffed, so it's like a lateral shift. Like the big thing is like solar engines, I think are just amazing. Like I cannot overrate this unit, honestly. The damage is pretty mediocre, but blinded is so important on the Lizardmen because they're a faction that's like, high weapon strength, low combat stats. Blinded is just amazing for them, and then that vigor replenishment too is just so good.
So
yeah.
if you don't think they're S tier, now we play the game. Are Wood Elves better than Lizardmen?
I don't think so. I don't think
Then they're
better.
top of A, son. They're top of A or they're S because Wood Elves are currently our top of A.
I would say it's close. Okay, I don't know about S tier. I wouldn't put them S tier. I wouldn't put them with the Demons of Chaos and Dwarves. Like I wouldn't put them there.
All right, I'll give you that. Maybe not.
If you want to create like a second tier, that's like just call it Nakai tier. Put the Lizardmen there.
Nakai tier. All right, I'll move them down to the top of A with Wood Elves and Empire. But that means Beastmen also get bumped down to B just because our A tier is so full, and Beastmen are currently at the bottom of it.
That's fine.
But yeah, that's where my S tier argument comes from. Before people get mad at me, the S tier argument came from looking at the factions that are at A tier. I think they're better than Wood Elves.
Demons of Chaos are better than Lizardmen. I would say that definitely.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Demons of Chaos and Dwarves are better than Lizardmen. We haven't gotten to Dwarves yet, but it's like, okay. I mean, they're better than Wood Elves. They're better than Empire. They're better than Tzeentch. They're better than Skaven. Wait a second. Where do these guys end up? I think it's S tier. Now, I put them. Yeah. I put them at the top of A, because I do think, like you said, Demons of Chaos and Dwarves are standalone above Lizardmen, like by a good margin, so I think that deserves a whole tier separation. But just throwing a good word in, I think Lizardmen are underrated. I think a lot of people are overlooking the scaly lads.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes another hot take. Bretonnia has fallen all the way to C tier.
I was gonna say B, but you're gonna say C?
I'm gonna say C, man. I'm gonna say C. Their star has fallen so far. Regrowth took further nerfs. It doesn't affect Bretonnia as much as other factions because a lot of their big units have perf vigor, but like still, people have solved Bretonnia. Like people know how to deal with them. It's either going to be Archer spam or Supreme Knight spam, and that is it. Lewin's really the last Lord standing. I haven't seen the Fey Enchantress or Alberic do anything in a while. People take them, but I just haven't been impressed with them in the games I'm watching. It's like, oh, okay.
Their thing is they've been relegated to their game 2 builds, except Fey Enchantress isn't nearly as good as she used to be. That's the big thing. Because now they're having to start doing the whole, like, let's take a bunch of Knights of the Realm and even a couple of questing Knights here and there, maybe, if we really need some armor piercing. But that's not as good anymore because it's not as supported by because Fey Enchantress was just a world beater back in game 2. But her Mortis engine just isn't nearly as good anymore. Regrowth did get a nerf, but she still is like a solid healer, like solid. But Bretonnia doesn't need a solid Lord. They need an amazing Lord for the rest of their roster just to carry the day. So that's why Lewin is kind of the only one there standing. I do still like good old Alberic. I do think he can be pretty solid into cavalry factions, but against pretty much else, especially because we've talked about this a couple times now, Monstrous is kind of the name of the game right now, especially now the bug is fixed. Lewin is better suited to that because he just gives you that tankiness that you really need in your Lord. So, but yeah, overall, like especially with the Grail Knights being brought back to Earth, it just is pretty damn rough.
I feel the opposite about Bretonnia. I feel about Wood Elves, where Wood Elves rose in the tiers for me, even though they technically got nerfed this patch. They rose for me because people are learning how to use them. Bretonnia is falling because people have learned how to fight them. And it's like, they've been a one-trick pony for so long. Everyone is so comfortable dealing with them. It's like...
And that one trick got, like, pretty heavy nerfs, too.
Yeah, so... This patch, they didn't get nerfed even further, but I just think they continue to fall as everyone learns how to beat them.
One thing that does kind of keep them a little bit, like, the part of the reason why I was going to put them as B tier is because Bretonnian players are kind of remembering that Flock of Doom exists, and they're starting to actually take Damsels of Beasts, and they're getting some pretty good work out of it. So something like that can catch people off guard because they kind of just always expect healing. So, like, you can get some decent work with that, but I would say that they are, like, B at most, but I also won't object to C.
I put them at the top of C above Nurgle and Warriors of Chaos right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Kislev, another hot take coming in maybe. These guys were S tier not that long ago. I think they fell straight past A. I feel like they went from S all the way down to B with the last round of nerfs. Not this patch, but the patch before. They just got like kicked right in the groin.
They are still strong. I think a lot of it's going to be Kislev players having to learn how to play them. First of all, because they just haven't played them that much because they kept kind of getting banned. But also, you just you're not like a destroyer of worlds anymore, so you have to just learn how to actually win with them. I do think the best way to go is if you just go really cheap with your like caster lords, like your either the Zarina or with the just regular ice witches. Get like a Streltsy line or something like that, because I really like Streltsy. I think that's at least my favorite of their missile infantry unit there, and then just try to go wide otherwise with like a couple Griffin Legion. But yeah, they definitely, with Things of the Woods getting nerfed, they got hurt pretty bad. Froststorms actually do kind of help a bit in some matchups where you don't have to worry about them getting shot because the collision attacks actually do really help them. But otherwise, like they definitely do feel like the cost nerfs and things like that.
Yeah, it's just a death by 1,000 cuts. Now their whole roster is so expensive that it's like Kislevite warriors cost more than High Elf spearmen, and they earn it in some matchups, but in a lot of matchups, it feels bad to take them because it's like, oh, am I going to get in a shooting fight and these guys are just going to be pin cushions?
Yeah, just burning head them or shoot them. They're expensive enough now where it's worth it.
It's tough. So Kislev's feeling the burn. I think they do end up right in the middle though. Still have some solid cavalry. They have some decent spells. Hawks of Mishka is actually low key one of the best spells in the game.
Really good, yeah, really good.
Frostworm,
especially just in those late games when like Vigor's also reducing people's armor, so you don't have to worry about the lack of armor piercing, and that discourage effect just hits even harder. It's just really good.
Yeah. So Kislev fell from grace all the way from S tier, but I don't think they're even in the bottom half of factions yet. They're fine. We have 3 factions left, sir.
All right.
Dwarfs. I'll make this part very short. Dwarfs are the best faction in the game. This faction's ridiculous. On a for fun stream, I was playing some new DLC stuff with some fans. I picked Dwarves. I picked none of the bullshit units you're thinking about, and I still won very easily. I forgot 2 Thunderers. They didn't fire a single shot. I won very easily.
Yeah, that's because everything they have is bullshit.
Everything they have is bullshit.
Like I think, hold on, let me try to. I think it was Sabras. It's Gotrek Starbreaker. He told me the best one. He basically just said, rule of thumb is that all dwarf units are niche at worst. They have no bad units, not a single one, which is 100% true. They are such a damn good roster. They really are like sort of the adage that like an extreme roster, if it becomes really good, that means it's like oppressive if it becomes good. Because in order for dwarves to be at the top of the meta, that means everything has to be really good. They have to be insanely cost effective, like by design, and that just adds up so much, and they end up just winning every trade.
Yeah, they have really strong artillery, really strong range tools, really strong air units, and a really strong front line. And it's like they don't have cavalry, they don't have chariots, but everything else they have is so strong they don't need it, and it's tough. And in the monstrous meta, they're really short, so it's easy for the ranged units to shoot the monstrous infantry coming in, and then they have slayers, which are some of the best anti-monstrous infantry. Dwarves are just too strong, and like they're a really tough faction to balance, partially just because of their identity, but it is tough, and it is weird. I acknowledge that it's weird that we've been talking about the infantry meta is fading, but dwarves are more like short cavalry. They have insane mass.
Yeah. The mass really helps. Also, that spell resistance just like helps neuter the spells that you try to bring to bust open those blobs and formations and stuff like that. So yeah, basically all of a lot of the stuff that makes it so that infantry is kind of struggling now, where everybody's getting tools to deal with them. The dwarves are still pretty good against them. They are very, very resilient to getting charged by big stuff. They have a lot of really good tools for killing the big stuff, and they are very resilient to the kind of magic and stuff like that that people bring also. So yeah, really, really tough faction.
Yeah, and the mass is big because it factors into some of the equations for how much damage charges do. Yep. So in the Empire versus Dwarves matchup, Empire Knights are still very good, but like watching them charge unbraced Dwarf Warriors, like even if you catch Dwarf Warriors that are still walking, like they didn't stop and brace, it still does pathetic damage compared to unbraced like Marauders. So yeah. It's just like a lot of the things that we were saying, and this isn't to say that dwarves shouldn't take less damage than Marauders. That's their whole shtick. I get that, but just saying like all the stuff I'm talking about, where you can clear infantry really well, doesn't quite apply to dwarves the same way. So they're a little, they're insulated from the infantry killing every other roster is getting. So it's tough. They're crazy good still. Yeah.
For sure.
Chorfs. C tier, above Nurgle, below Bretonnia.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Dude, I have never gone from loving a faction to hating a faction as quickly as I've gone on Dwarfs. I I kept trying to
Yeah,
make like wide Dwarfs work. And that was my way of
it does.
playing them. A lot of
Mhm.
blunderbusses, hobgoblin archers, wolf riders, all this stuff. And like the prevailing answer is the most boring one. It's that fucking ROR train with the Dreadquake
Yep.
mortar and 2 Bale Tauruses. Every game, it's not that good. It works sometimes, it doesn't work other times. It's one note, it's boring as shit, and these guys suck.
Yeah, I fucking hate their design. There's such a tale of extremes for me because as far as like their aesthetic and stuff like that, they're such a cool faction, man.
So
It's
cool.
like Babylonian themed Chaos Dwarfs. That's just awesome, right? But their actual roster design, like their balance, is just so awful. It's just cancer. Especially just how much can you abuse single entity monster cancer and win with this one, or do they have the tools to kill it? That's really it. Like so, playing as them in this way is just a real pain in the ass. And if you try to play them in a fun way, you just lose, so that also sucks. And then if you're playing against them, then it also sucks because now you're facing single entity cancer. So it's just like, yeah, it's just a very unfortunate faction.
Yeah. And I don't think they're that strong because it's not even, it's,
Yeah,
they're not the type of thing where it's like, oh, you see the single entities coming, you can't kill them. It's like, no, you can. It's just not fun, but you can kill them.
yeah.
Bring a lot of ranged.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah, like their cavalry just needs buffs. Like their wolf cavalry is just pitiful. They
Oh,
only got like they cost 525 gold, almost the price of Reavers, and they only have 4,000 HP and 40 leadership.
yeah. The Chaos Dwarves themselves need buffs. Not like the Iron Sword, like literally the units called Chaos Dwarves. And
Yeah,
then
like the mid tier ones.
their Cav needs some buffs. And then I think they need aggressive hobgoblins of some kind. Like a
I mean, they
700.
technically have those. They just suck.
They suck, but I'm thinking like a 750 gold dual wielding armor piercing hobgoblin variant with like Vanguard and stock.
Yeah, something like that could be good.
Like just
And I've
kill.
always been saying that because CA's been throwing like 1 or 2 units here and there in batches. If they just got an ogre labor unit, that would be so much just to give them some cheap mass.
Yeah. I
Like
think
they
if
already
you
have
if
it. 'Cause if you look on the Dreadquake mortar, they got that ogre dude who's loading the mortar itself. Like just get 24 of those for like an ogre bull chaff unit basically.
I was also thinking that hobgoblin thing I proposed is pretty much just take the Death Runner stat line from the Skaven and put it on a
Put it on
hobgoblin
make it green.
model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last up is Grand Cathay.
Hmm.
I think these guys have slowly slid. I
Hmm.
would put them in B above Slaanesh under Kislev. Above Kislev?
I would put them. I wouldn't mind them being there. I would put them a little bit lower, like below Slaanesh. Just Cathay, they are still pigeonholed into the way they play, like that. Just those tight, like either boxes or just a formation so tight it might as well be a box. They're still pigeonholed there, so your opponent more or less knows what you're doing. And because of some of the nerfs they've gotten, all like the other ways of playing, like if you want to try to play them like Empire, right? Spread them out, get your Jade units like spread into a wider formation. You got your 4 Jade Lancers, try to protect them, let your range do its work. Those got nerfed because your infantry doesn't hold as well as it used to, especially your Jade Warriors. And also, like aggressive play also got worse because Chroma got nerfed, right? Because part of why rushing with Cathay used to be kind of viable was because Chroma were so good, but now they're just like good. Now they definitely feel mortal. You can kill them. So yeah, unfortunately, you just get more pigeonholed into those box builds, and it's just not as good as it used to be. It's still like a tedious faction to play as because of it, but as far as like power wise, they are just not as good. They've definitely fallen off.
I agree. I also think, unlike the dwarves, their infantry are not isolated from the insulated from the infantry killing meta,
Mhm.
and Jade Warriors, Peasant Long Spears, still some of the best infantry in the game. But as infantry stocks are falling, Grand Cathay looks to its monstrous stuff, and it's like, okay, you have piss poor single entities in those lion statues.
Yeah.
You have Jade Lancers, which are good, but you can only have so many of them. And then you have Longbow Riders, which are fine but pretty expensive. And it's like, oh, if monsters and chariots and single entities are becoming the meta, Cathay does not have strong answers in that category.
Yeah.
So they're not
Like a
terrible.
big part of why they were at so like high in the meta before, like proper S tier before, was because their infantry was just oppressively stubborn, and now that's just not the case anymore. You technically can use the Jangu War Drum to buff them up closer to that former glory, but then now you're spending 1,100 gold there in the hole, so it's just like, yeah, you gotta pay a premium to get that, which does make you narrower, which is pretty rough.
Yeah. I sent you a picture, a screenshot of our tier list.
Yeah, I can see it. Thank you.
For the final here. That is all the factions. I'm noticing A tier is pretty full, B tier is pretty full, C tier is getting increasingly lonely, and then we have 2 way at the top and 2 way at the bottom.
Yeah, a decent number of the C tiers have moved up. Like Khorne used to be down in the pits, Slaanesh used to be down in the pits. They got beefed up. Ogre Kingdoms also, which is nice to see. So that's pretty good. There's just like a couple stuff at the top, which are just a pain in the ass. But overall, I would say balance is definitely a lot better than it used to be. So that is very nice.
That was going to be my end cap. Is I've said this every tier list, and it still remains true. So I'll keep saying it. Every tier list we do, the middle gets closer, and the bottom gets closer. But I will say,
it's getting there.
S tier keeps getting further away. I do think the gap between S and A this patch is larger than it was last patch. I feel like Dwarfs and Demons of Chaos are just so much stronger than Lizardmen. But
yeah,
besides those 2 factions, I think everything else is closer than it used to be.
Yeah, like that big cluster of A and B is pretty damn reasonable, I would think, for the most part. Like I'm looking in there and there's not a lot of like bullshit in there, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a lot of arguments to be made between A and B. I think like Lizardmen are definitively above Vampire Coast. But other than that, looking at these, like if someone told me an argument for like, nah, Kislev should be A, I could see it being a reasonable argument.
Like Dark Elves and Beastmen moving up 1, I wouldn't like have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Or like Greenskins moving down to high B, like stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the C tier is very appropriate. I don't see a lot of arguments to move anybody from there to B. Like Bretonnia, maybe, but I don't think there's a reasonable case for Chaos Dwarves, Nurgle, or Warriors of Chaos to move up. So I think C is pretty well defined, but A and B, I could see arguments to move certain things up or down into each other. But I think it's impossible to move anybody from A up to S if we're now. I did consider Lizardmen S tier, but that was before you reminded me of the gap between them and Demons, and it's like, oh, okay, well,
yeah,
there's a big gap there.
It'd be so weird to put them right next to those 2 factions.
Yeah. So unless we have an S plus that I can put Demons and Dwarves in, which defeats the purpose, so Lizards are A, but the rest of this is fine. Counts and Norska do need some serious buffs, but I also am hoping Dwarves and Demons of Chaos get toned down a bit. I would not want everybody to get up to the caliber Dwarves and Demons of Chaos are at. I would want them to come down, because they are legitimately frustrating to play against. Anyone in A tier right now, I consider pretty fun to play against. But
like Dwarves, like even in the times I've been able to beat them, it's just a slog. It's just horrible, and it doesn't feel good to win. And usually you lose because they're so busted. But even when you win, it just feels awful.
Yeah, Demons of Chaos is less of a grind.
Yeah.
It just feels like such a guessing game, and if you don't guess perfectly, like I brought a blob counter tool. They're going air cheese. I lose. It's just like it's really frustrating because you feel like you lost as soon as you load up the game. I don't know. Unless you guess right.
The chaos can be annoying with the build roulette kind of stuff there. So yeah.
Yeah, because they're just so extreme. It's like crazy strong mobility, crazy strong aerial units, crazy strong blob.
Which is kind of unsurprising considering what they are, because they basically just have all of like the strengths of the other demon factions, and it's all been slammed together. So
except for infantry, their infantry success.
Yeah, but their other stuff is still cracked, so that's like kind of power through that. Yeah.
Screw you, demons. It also sucks because like I have the most fun playing Total War when there are balanced builds fighting each other, like cavalry, infantry, and artillery all have their place, and the Demons of Chaos are like, we're skipping one of those steps.
Yeah, pretty much. They're just like full extremes. It's just a question of like which extreme are you prepared for.
Yeah. Then I feel less like I'm an army fighting an army and more I remember I'm playing a video game and I'm like, oh, lame.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Which kind of just hurts the purpose of Total War. But to get back to positive to end this out, like we said, that A and B tier is all feeling really good, really competitive with each other. A lot and
of
even most of the C tiers, like I don't think Nurgle is that far from being buffed up to being in like getting the same like Khorne and Slaanesh treatment, right? So they're up to the B tier.
Yeah. No, they're one good patch away. Vampire counts and Norska, I do think need an entire reconsidering to be brought into the meta. I don't think they're one patch away.
Like capital DLC. They need that.
Yeah, because Norska's problem is their entire army passive is negated by magic damage, which is more common, and their roster is teeny tiny. And vampire counts are just a outdated concept for what an army is.
Yeah. They're like the grindy sort of just like drain you down and just beat you down faction that just gets out attrition by a bunch of factions right now. So yeah, they get out attrition by Skaven now. That's how far they've fallen off. So yeah.
When everyone can heal cap, no one can heal cap.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's a great tier list. I think you did a fantastic job, and
thank you, sir.
Thanks for joining me. This has been
Yeah,
Tequila Sunset. We love Tequila Sunset.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
I wish
and yeah, just look up Tequila Sunset Total War. You'll find me on YouTube or whatever. And yeah, thanks for having me, man.
I wish Tactical Lich was up at this hour. We could have just had the mega Conquest land battle streamer tier list.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
But he's a European nerd.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, guys.
Subscribe. Yes.